Welcome to One Up Fantasy, helping you one up the fantasy football competition. For the latest in Chicago sports news, visit ChiCitySports.com. And now, here are the hosts of One Up Fantasy, Stephen Johnson and Chris Jackle. Kaboom!
Greetings and salutations, one and all. Welcome into an all-new episode of One Up Fantasy here on ChiCitySports.com and the Tape Never Lies Network. I'm Stephen Johnson. He is Chris Jackle, and we are in a lovely Week 13 that has given us every twist and turn imaginable, and it's only Tuesday night. Man, I tell you, between the injuries, the bye-week players, and everything in between, I'm somewhat hyperventilating through a few leagues. I don't know about you, but it ain't looking like a pretty week.
First off, hello, Mr. Johnson. How are
we?
Week 13, and I am up Schitt's Creek without a paddle. Let me tell you. I mean, it is no bueno over here, man. You're right. Bye week, more importantly, injury, catastrophic, just sound the alarms, you name it. 911, it is here. Part 2, because it already happened once. It's happening again. And my goodness, Mr. Johnson, it's no good.
No, it is not. Not at all. We're looking at more or less two of the top backs, one out for the year, one a little bit of a question mark. There's some conflicting reports about one, but we'll get into that right off the top. But yeah, we talked about Byemageddon earlier this year, but hey, what's one Byemageddon without a second Byemageddon? And 4 teams on the bye week this week that are going through a pain of setting rosters, to say the least, with the Panthers, Packers, Browns, and Titans all chilling at home, getting some rest and relaxation. A few of those teams, really, you could make an argument for all those teams potentially making a playoff push if they can finish the end of the season strong. But here we are. We'll talk about that. But off the top, we would not be amiss if we didn't start the conversation around Christian McCaffrey. Out for the year with an ankle injury in a walking boot after the game. Honestly, the 101 consensus 101 in
it's like the mad curse all over again, right?
I tell you,
horrible.
It was not too great, to say the least. And so now Chuba Hubbard gets his chance once again to lead that backfield, and I'm sure Cam Newton and the way that he's been taking off with the ball, not necessarily the greatest performance from him in week 12, but you know, it's going to be an interesting situation regarding that entire backfield in Carolina and how they're going to handle that run game as they try and bounce back here and get things rolling towards a potential wild card slot, because I don't think anybody's going to be catching the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at this point in time, but that's another conversation for another day. However, with this, the main question I have, because this is the second consecutive year that we have seen a significant amount of time missed by Christian McCaffrey, who, when on the field, is a do-it-all back that puts up tons of points. Where in your mind is he now, at only 25 years old, mind you, in terms of draft capital, if you're in August of 2022 and you're looking to draft next year's team? Where do you feel comfortable taking him, knowing that, you know, we're getting some consistency out of not being consistent on the field?
That's a great question. You know, I draw a parallel here to like Saquon after the knee injury, right? And you want, to me, there's gonna be a difference. And I mean, time will tell. This isn't such a huge injury. It's more just the timing of the injury. They're just gonna ride. I mean, the ship has sailed on their season. Cam stinks, and you know, so it's just like, we'll pay $65 million for 3 quarterbacks, and here we go. You know, but if he's healthy in the offseason, they're saying they're not going to trade him, right? So they're expecting him to be ready to go for 2022. What does that mean for fantasy? If Saquon was healthy, if you had healthy reports going into this season, I think he would have been drafted a little higher. There was still people that drafted him in my leagues in the top 10, which was still fucking mind blowing. But to that point, to that point, though, there was that hope that he was going to regain that form because he was healthy, but they didn't have that. There was like he'll be ready by then. And if you did your drafts early enough, you fell into that trap. But if you did it right before the season, you knew, right? But I see McCaffrey being healthy starting next year. I just personally, as we talk here, fantasy, I don't see myself drafting him. I would stay away, but I could see somebody else falling for the bait and taking him in the top 5 just because of Christian McCaffrey and that potential of being a 25-point a week guy for you in a PPR league. But I realistically would like to see him fall out of the top 12 and be in the second round. But I just don't see it with the love that you get for CMC. I mean, what do you think, dude?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of talk, especially in the Twitterverse, regarding where he is going to be ranked, and a lot of people are even saying that he should stay in that top 5. And I'm not necessarily sold that that's necessarily the case. I think Jonathan Taylor is playing himself into being a consensus 101 next year if he continues to roll the way that he is. We talked about him last week. Exactly. Is that MVP type candidate. You have other younger backs that have shown some pretty strong consistency as well this year in Najee Harris, DeAndre Swift. And then you have some of the holdovers as well in Dalvin Cook, which again, that's another guy where you almost kind of expect him to miss a game or two just at any time. And now here he is with a shoulder injury, and we don't know how long he's going to miss. We'll get to that in a second. But then
you can play with a fucking ball. You don't have to throw. Just get out there and fucking get the ball. Come on, man. I fucking need you, dude. So bad, Dalvin. It's killing me. Oh, sorry.
And then you bring in, the wide receivers as well. You get Devontae Adams. You can't discount what he's been able to do, and
be a bear even
I hate saying it, but another name that could creep into the first round, especially if he stays in the same consistency that he is Cooper Kupp, because he's been putting up 23 point games week in and week out with such consistency. It's something that you can't turn down whatsoever. But in terms of McCaffrey, I'm with you where I can't fathom spending that high of a pick on him. I'm almost to the point where I'm scared off for what he could potentially do to damage, the roster. And again, we saw it this year where even in the first couple of rounds, unless you took a specific 4 or 5 guys in those first 24 overall picks, your roster's probably not doing too hot right now, which is crazy to say that there were only that many safe moves in terms of the consistency.
2 out of the top 7 picks are out. I mean, are playing this week, and that's Kamara and Elliott. And I don't even know if you would want to start them Thursday night. Like, that's such a scary play. There's other guys you may be able to scoop off the waiver wire to play that would outscore those guys, with the whole Taysom Hill, Kamara, conundrum.
Yeah.
And, so it's fucking a nightmare right now for fantasy owners. And like you said, though, if you were lucky enough, because there's no skill right now to drafting that well, there's no fucking way. I mean, if so, you're in Vegas and you're driving around.
Nostradamus.
Someone's driving you around. Yeah, exactly. But it's to think that many injuries, and if you're in first place now and you're surviving, or you're looking at the playoffs, I should say, thank your fucking lucky stars, because you have dodged some major bullets, or you've just done some great managing and you've made some great trades. I'm not saying I've done any of that, but but with that, it's here we go. We're going to get right back into backups, handcuffs, and all these other situations. I also think it may change some of the draft strategies moving forward for people down the road, and not trying to get running back heavy and really trying to load up on wide receivers, and really maybe looking at one running back and then just streaming the rest, due to the fact that you just never know. And so that's just something to think about, just speaking on top of just all the fucking injuries we've dealt with all the way up to here, week 13.
Yeah, and it's funny because there's a very vocal 0 running back crowd out there in terms of draft strategy. And I tell you, for all the years that they seem to figure it out, it seems as though they have indeed figured it out. with how things have gone so far this year. But I do agree with you though, because especially from a dynasty perspective, if you're playing dynasty leagues, the thought process has always been, there's always those top tier running backs. You always want that stud guy. But even now, it seems as though the safer play is to build around wide receivers and tight end and go for those middle of the road guys. And then when you do need to get that stud, just trade for him, whether it's through draft picks or whether it is through your wide receiver depth that you do build up in the early rounds of your startup. And it's weird feeling that way, because I was always a guy that wanted to get, those two workhorse guys. But after this year, it's a scary predicament to just see how fragile the position is. It was an eye-opening experience. And hell, we're only in week 13 of 18. So still plenty of time to go, and for all we know, there's still plenty of road to be had on this injury-riddled setup that we've seen in 2021. So, it's really difficult. Honestly, this is one of the more difficult fantasy seasons I think I've ever.
You're earning your money this year. You're not, you know what I mean? At this point, you either sat on the waiver wire, you have all your money available, or you blew it all and you're fucked. But you are able to just kind of scoop somebody off the heap and they work out just because of the way it's kind of played itself out. There's guys out right now that are they're available. They were dropped 6 weeks ago and they've just been sitting there. And guess what? They're top priorities for us. And we'll get into that down the road here, but it's crazy. And just to piggyback your point about loading up on wide receivers in draft time, if you're in those middle rounds and you miss on a running back, like a Chris Carson this year, a guy that you thought was going to, and he just fists you this year, just with all the shit going on, and it's like, that team is not going to do it, because if you drafted a wide receiver in that spot, I'm sorry, I think you're going to double the production at this point based on the fact the guy hasn't played. But I just really think it's starting to, the trend has shifted, and then maybe it did last year and we're just late to the game, but I really see it more happening now just because it's the second year with the devastating injuries to the running back game,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's again, really, you look down the full ADP before the season started, and just the minefield
it's crazy.
Is just something that is so damn eye-opening. Like, I'm looking at one of my
Do you
teams
have it right
here.
there? I'm gonna look it up.
I'm looking at this here. So I went into my running back room like, okay, this is a must win if I want to make playoffs this week. And I'm going down the list. I'm like, okay, Nick Chubb is on bye. Chuba Hubbard's on bye, because I also had Christian McCaffrey, so I had the handcuff there. Michael Carter's on the IR. And so my only healthy backs this week, and I don't even know if they're playing, are Rashad Penny and Tyson Williams. So I have severe waiver wire work to do this week.
Oh yeah, I'll be busy tonight. After we get done with this, I will definitely be doing the same, man. I have moves to make. I don't feel comfortable playing Kamara this week. I'm so nervous about that, if I can be transparent, and for 51 receiving yards with Hill as the quarterback last year just makes me so nervous. I just, we have our work cut out for us tonight. We got some time, but I know in our TTNL league, I have like $13 left. I lost by, I think 1.5 points to somebody, and it hurt because I had two guys on the bench. If I played, I would have smoked his ass, but hey, that's what happens. It's fantasy.
Yeah, it's not a pleasant week for either of us. I think we both might be in trouble for making the playoffs in the.
I should be good. I think I'm
good. Okay, well, maybe I'm going to be in trouble for.
I'm 8-4. I'm in third. I think I'm in second place. I think, or third place. Who knows? But I got confidence in my guys. I got Mixon. He's going to take me to the promised land.
Yeah, I lost by 6 because Logan Thomas and Terry McLaurin only got me a combined 15, and I needed 21.
Tyler Lockett beat me.
Oh, man. Like, I'm so disappointed with the way this team has gone. I'm in 6th right now. So I've got some work to do. But hey, I'm still floating below or Claudio's still floating below me here, so I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
There it is. Hey, if you could be Claudio, I guess there's something, that there's something to be proud of,
Hey, still got time though. Still got time. So
still week 13. Shit, we got some time to go. And speaking of that, I mean, we should probably move. I mean, do you want to talk about injuries and how it equates to backups, or do you want to just kind of jump into?
So
what do you want to do?
Well, let's talk about this because we did start off with Christian McCaffrey. We touched very shortly on Dalvin Cook. First there was the talk of the torn labrum, there was a separated shoulder. It was it was all over the place, and we heard everything from could be a while to 2 weeks, and then you have Mike Zimmer coming out and saying, well, he's actually day to day, which I'm struggling. Really I'm struggling to believe that is the case, to say the least.
Yeah, but true. You never know.
We're sitting here with, again, a treasure trove of running backs that are potentially sitting here for the waiver wire this week. Again, you have Chuba Hubbard. You have Alexander Madison as another big one there. Jamal Williams with DeAndre Swift potentially missing this week. Sony Michel if Darrell Henderson doesn't play with his quad injury. Again, it just continues to stack and stack and stack. If there's one guy that you want to put your money on right now, knowing the landscape of what potentially might be missed in terms of playing time with the guys in front of these backups, who do you put your priority on?
All day, man. I'm taking Alexander Madison. I mean, I think he's the guy. I like Chuba. They don't have anything to play for. They're playing for next year. I think they're all trying out because they're going to go out and get a quarterback in the offseason. They're going to try to do some stuff next year. But to that, I had Madison in a handcuff. I dropped him. Now I'm crying myself to sleep after fucking, the injury, because I like Zimmer saying it was day to day, but in reality, I heard, I believe he had his other shoulder was already injured. So then, now I don't even think he can put his hands up if he needed to, to catch a pass. But, it's unfortunate. I hope that, God forbid, I just want him to be healthy at the end of the day. But, fantasy wise, I would love if he could play, because the way their offense runs, Madison has shown when he stepped in for Cook, he's been a monster. Double-digit points every week he took over for him this year. But I mean, big numbers, 18, 22, you were pumped to have him. But that's the guy I'd put my money on. And I think he's rostered only 20% of the leagues right now because of everyone dropping him after Cook kind of hit the ground running when he came back from the injury. So I think he's a guy that you have a good shot at getting. But I don't know. I hope I didn't take your guy, but what do you think about it?
No, I'd have to agree with you there, though. And it's funny, even this week, you're going up against the Lions, and the fact that earlier this season, it was the Lions that Madison went up against, and he had 113 rushing yards, 40 receiving yards, and a touchdown. So, I mean, right then and there, that's 21 points right off of the bat in your standard leagues, and you're not even getting into the meat and potatoes of the PPR or even the half PPR. So, I mean, just from a productive standpoint, I don't think there's any way you can go wrong with Madison as being the number one guy here. Again, Chuba on the bye week, Jamal Williams. It's looking like Williams might be a 1 week option.
Yeah, they're saying Swift, but Swift is day to day too. I mean, it sounds like he's not going to play this week, but it's for all it's worth, I think, one game, week 13. If he's a guy, if you need a plug and play, you are right though. If you just need that 1 week instead of trying to, because everyone's going to go for the guys that are out all year, you may be able to just snake Jamal Williams. That's a good call. Or a guy like Matt Breida, who had 3 touchdowns over his past 3 games. He's a guy that people probably just been sleeping on. They're he's not going to do it again. And then he went out and does it again. So, there's a couple of guys. I mean, there are so many guys out there, and you've talked about a couple already. And I imagine when we get to waiver wire, we can run down that list again. But, Miles Sanders is out, so that leaves Bart Scott available again. And so, dude, it's it's crazy. It's fucking nuts.
It's one thing after another. It's one thing after
Everybody
another.
gets to eat, I think, on the waiver wire this week, just because there's so much available. I mean, if guys want to be jerks and block guys, hey, by all means, go out and get yourself a guy and to block the guy that's on right below you. Strategize. There's nothing wrong with doing some of that GMing. So that's just calling doing business. You're trying to win that bread at the end of the day. So
it's all part of the game. All got to be on top of things, especially if you're in the heat of a playoff race to try and get that final spot.
Can't win if you don't play, right, Mr. Johnson?
Exactly. I've learned that a couple times where I have kind of had some brain fog going, and there it goes, and okay, wasn't supposed to start him, but started him anyway, or forgot about the waiver this week. That probably wasn't the smartest thing, but hey, that's what happens when you're in 20 plus leagues, and you just don't.
And I definitely said Barb Scott, by the way.
Oh, hey, little slip up there. We all knew you meant Boston.
Bob
Scott.
called me out.
All right.
I like that. I like that, Bob. I appreciate it.
Can't wait. Well, let's dive right into it. Let's go into the waiver wire pickups for the week. There's plenty here. Before we do that, Bob touching in here. How many touches do you see Breda getting? This is the interesting thing. You see Zach Moss getting the healthy scratch. That shocked me. That was the option there for what the Bills chose to do. Man, I want to say this is still Singletary's backfield to roll with. Yeah. And it's going to be more of a change of pace type. My guess is from a touch standpoint, you're going to be in that probably 10 to 13 range in terms of overall touches, if I had to guess. So I don't know. I don't know if you have any other ideas or thoughts on that one.
I mean, as you talk about, I was looking something up, but his week 12 stats, 11 total touches, 2 catches compared to 16 for Singletary, so I mean, but he did put up more yards, 54 to 48, and got that tutter. And I think I may just repeat what you said, but back to back 12 point PPR points in the last 3 games. I mean, that's pretty good. So he's got flex appeal against the Patriots, but it's tough, but he shouldn't cost you much money. So I think he's a guy you could be comfortable just being, go ahead and put yourself out there and go grab him. And I think, if you're trying to get 12 to 15 points, he's been doing that and his trend is there. So I think that's a smart play.
Yeah, he's a quiet play, but definitely pluggable as a flex option if you need it, especially with the way that the depth has kind of rolled along here. Max chiming in as well. Is Sutton a good pickup? Someone just dropped him. I know with Teddy Bridgewater out, he might not be the best. Honestly, I'm surprised somebody would have dropped Sutton. Of all the wide receivers that have struggled this year, I wouldn't necessarily put Sutton on that list of a guy that I'd want to cut bait with, especially, look at some of the other guys, some of the more high-profile guys like Kenny Galladay, Allen Robinson. Sutton should be rostered, plain and simple. So if he's there, I would definitely
dealing with injuries. That's just that to me. That's just got to be an injury drop. Like you just are fucked, and you need to go grab somebody. Sutton was like your last wide receiver on your roster. I don't know why you would cut him.
Yeah,
I did trade him though in our TTNL league for the backup running back that was playing for the Browns when Chubb had COVID. So I basically dropped him for that 1 week. So I shouldn't really talk about.
It's I don't know if it sounds like Teddy is going to play. So I think that that, like you said, that trade. That was a smart trade. You had it for a week. I made the claim for him already, so perfect. You're ahead of the game here. But honestly, it's funny if Locke ends up starting though. Locke's skill set plays a lot better to what Sutton does, and Bridgewater plays a lot better to what Judy does. So there is that, but at the same time, it's Cortland Sutton. You're not. You have the potential of getting some ugly weeks there, but
he's a boomer bust guy this year,
Yeah, Yeah, he definitely is, especially in that offense. But
he'll get you 24. He'll definitely, if he hits, you're looking at a W more than likely. Because he's your flex guy. Unless he's your wide receiver 1 in the week, then But
right,
hey,
but
still.
I mean, they've got I believe they have the Chiefs this week, so it's a relatively solid matchup. They're probably going to have to pass to catch up with the Chiefs in terms of that as well. So I mean, even for this week, I like him. Let's do waiver wire. We got waiver wire pickups. We'll start at the top. We'll talk some quarterbacks. Who we got?
Yes, sir. I mean, there's a couple guys. Obviously, the people want to see Taysom Hill do well, so I feel like he's somebody people are just going to go jump and try to grab. I want to go get out. He's rostered in 13% of the league, so now he's out there. But I honestly, I like Taylor Heineke this week going against Vegas. I just think he's a dude rostered. He's 43% rostered, so you got a shot depending on how deep your league is. But he's thrown for over 2,600 yards this year. He's almost rushed for 300, 17 touchdowns. He's taking care of the ball for the most. I mean, he's got 10 interceptions, but he's averaging just under 20 fantasy points this year. I like him against the little shootout action against Vegas. I just feel that he'd be the nice play there. There's some other dudes there, but in regards to the quarterback in the waiver wire, he's a dude that I think you could go out and grab. I'm feeling you got somebody down south, but I'm curious to see who you're picking for a quarterback.
I guess he's playing down south this week.
Okay.
Not necessarily home to the down south. I'm kind of cheating a little bit because Yahoo he's over 50, but ESPN he's under 50. That's Carson Wentz going up against the Houston Texans this weekend. Again, had a pretty solid game overall against Tampa Bay. Threw for over 300, had 3 passing touchdowns, did throw for 2 interceptions, but again, going up against the Houston Texans, who have been very, what's the best word to put this without
let it fly, Mr. Johnson. Just let it fly.
I mean, they've looked like complete trash. Let's be honest. It's been a very ugly season for the Texans overall, and with the Colts defense going up against whatever you want to call the Texans offense this year, should offer up plenty of opportunities for that Colts offense to really get rolling and give them plenty of short fields to pile up the points. And they've been doing that at a pretty solid pace and competing at a pretty solid role as well. I mean, what they did to the Bills 2 weeks ago was a bit eye-opening to just about everybody. So there is that opportunity to get him rolling. Bob, they might run the ball, but at the same time, you got to get the points on the board. And honestly, the way that we've seen Carson Wentz play as of late, I don't think it's a terrible option there. Against Buffalo, they did run it quite a bit. I think
he didn't have that many fantasy points that game, though.
No, he did.
Buffalo hasn't given up. I think I read some crazy number that they had only 2 quarterbacks have scored more than 15 fantasy points against them this season, and none since week 5.
Yeah, which is nuts. And how many touchdowns did Taylor have in that game? 5. So they just kind of let him roll.
5 and 2 field goals, I think, got them their 41. Didn't they have 41 points?
Yeah, something like that. It was just absolutely wild. But here's the other thing, too, though, is that Wentz has only had 4 games this year where he hasn't thrown for multiple touchdowns. Yeah. So for the most part, he's been pretty consistent for the multiple touchdowns there. So really like him headed to the bye week and a bounce back here as well for getting the Colts back on track after that loss to Tampa Bay, which they probably should have had, but let's slip away. We'll go to running back next. We talked about a few of them. I'm going to go. We talked about Matt Breida, but it's funny because his counterpart in Buffalo is not much in the rostership area there either, and that's Devin Singletary going up against New England this weekend. And it seems like it's Devin Singletary's world up in Buffalo. For what they're able to do. And we've seen the running defense for New England kind of get knocked around a little bit, and it's probably going to turn into a sizable situation for Devin Singletary to solidify himself as that guy in the backfield. Have 15 carries against the Saints in their win last week. And again, if you're able to get that 15 to 18 carry a game guy, only rostered in 37% of leagues right now, you got to go and do it. Yep. And I think, between him and Matt Breida, they're both great pickups. I just prefer to get the guy with a little bit more volume, especially going up against, again, a New England team. And back at home, where they might be able to exploit the one issue that New England defense has really been dealing with.
Yep.
How about you?
That's a good call. I'm circling back to quarterbacks real quick because you brought him up before. Teddy Bridgewater is a guy to think about, more of like a stash as we get closer to the playoffs, because next week they play. Next week they play the Lions. I'm sorry. I was going to say, I don't know if I really like him against Arrowhead. Granted, it could be a shootout if he does play. I've used that twice now, the whole Derek Carr thing. But and now Teddy Bridgewater playing against KC. But that matchup next week in week 14 is something to think about. And if you have the ability to just forward think here, he's a dude to just maybe – if you do have a week 14 bye, because there are some teams that have byes next week, the last week of the season, that I don't know off the top of my head. Maybe you do, Mr. Johnson. But I know the Broncos aren't week 14 byes because they play the Lions. But just something to think about. I meant to throw that in while we were chatting before about quarterbacks, but running backs.
The only week 14 byes in over Indy and Miami.
Okay. No fantasy relevance, really. Jalen Waddle and Carson Wentz.
Oh, there's going to be a lot of teams without Jonathan Taylor in week 14. That ain't going to be
Jesus, pretty. I just missed that. Hopefully I got somebody that I'm playing. Oh, my goodness. How did I miss it? Hey.
Nevertheless.
So we're there in running backs, right? And you brought up Sonny Michel, and I think rostered in 41% of the leagues. If Henderson does not play, he is a must start. I mean, he's a guy playing against Jacksonville. I think, anytime he's touched the ball more than 20 times, the numbers are there. Granted, he didn't get a touchdown in week 3. He had 23 carries for 79 yards. And if he had a touchdown, it'll get a monster of a day. But this is a much, much more favorable matchup. But he was playing like I said, against Tampa. But this week against Jacksonville, I think he's a guy with Henderson being out. It's like you said, short term. But you're looking at some big fantasy points there, in my opinion. I like him. I like a bounce back game from the Lions. They kind of just need to put their stamp back on this season for themselves. And I think doing that with, Michelle there, I just think it's a good play. You got a chance to grab him. He's like, he's under 50% in most leagues. So he's somebody out there that you'd be able to get your hands on.
Yeah. It's,
what do you think? You like that one?
Yeah, I do, especially going up against Jacksonville in a game where they will probably find themselves in a very run positive script early on is definitely going to play into his hands. And so I'm curious. Again, in my mind, it makes more sense for the Rams to sit Henderson this week because I can't see them losing to Jacksonville, even with as poorly as they have been playing. Yeah. It's just one of those things that is gonna blow my mind if it happens. But hey, they beat the Bills this year, so who knows at this point? It's one of those things where we could be taken off guard and wow, look at this. So there is that possibility. But definitely worth holding on to Sonny Michel this week.
You like Dontrell Hilliard this week?
I mean, he's on the bye, so I think it's more again, kind of being ahead of the curve. And the same thing goes with Dante Foreman.
Would you invest money though in him right now? I mean,
I very little. I'd probably say $5 because I don't think there's going to be a lot of guys on him
because they need immediate pickups, right? You got to try to adjust the needs now. Yeah, all hands on deck.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be that situation, and I don't know. I could be wrong. That could be the case, but again,
and they play Jacksonville next week, so
Yeah, that's another smash matchup as we just discussed right here with Sony Michel. So yeah, I definitely think honestly both Dante Foreman or Hilaire, if both of them are available, or if even just one is available, it's worth throwing out a couple dollars just to get the jump there. But because I mean the thing is, a lot of these sites they also rotate their guys via how many points they're going to have for that week, their projected point totals for that week when everything's sorted in the waiver wire. So again, you're talking about two guys that are not going to be in that list, that are not going to be front of mind for a lot of people out there. So something to keep in mind there. Wide receiver.
I'm happy that Kyler Murray is coming back, but I just think Rondell Moore is, you don't know what you're going to get out of D-Hop. You're hoping that he's healthy. I like him rostered in only about 30 to 35% of the leagues out there. Favorable matchup going against the Bears. Unfortunately, I just think anybody against Chicago right now is probably a decent fantasy play. Their defense is good, but I just think we've seen it time and time again this year. Guys have been putting up numbers. They had a bye week 12, but week 11 against Seattle, he had 11 catches, 51 yards on 11 targets, and so he, obviously wasn't picked up last week. To your point, he was at the bottom of the list for waiver wire because he was on a bye. So a lot of people probably just omitted the fact that he wasn't even, out of sight, out of mind. And now he's there for people to want to grab. So I like Rondell Moore this week coming up against the Bears. And, there's some other guys I like, but I'm a Rondell Moore fan. And I'm going to throw it over to you because I think you got a couple good guys over there.
Yeah, I've got one in particular that seems to continue to float under the radar here. But as long as Calvin Ridley is out, it is Russell Gage's world down in Atlanta. He did, yes, have the one dud week against Dallas where he didn't catch a single pass. But outside of that, going back to week 7, so against Miami, against New Orleans, New England, and Jacksonville, he's averaging 14 points per game in PPR leagues. And so he's sitting here with a pretty sizable plate of target share as well. Just over the last few games here, 7 targets against Jacksonville in the victory on Sunday, and then 8 against New England, even though they lost 25-0. And so the target share is there for him, and it's going to stick here with him as well. And against Tampa Bay, again, they're going to have to throw the ball. It's going to turn ugly probably very quickly, as we've seen Atlanta against some of the better teams not do too hot. Again, looking at the Dallas and New England games where they, I think, scored a whopping 3 points between them. So not much to write home about there. But down the stretch here as well, looking at Carolina and San Francisco after that. And so those are 2 other games where they might also find themselves having to pass quite a bit. And again, it'll be a Russell Gage type situation unless we get surprised with the return of Calvin Ridley, which doesn't seem imminent whatsoever. I said it out loud. I'm sorry. I'd say he's probably.
I thought you did that on purpose because that popped up.
No, I didn't. I saw it after you highlighted it.
It's like, this guy's good.
It's I tell you, I can't see a situation in which he returns this year. I just can't.
No, I don't either.
And the fact that Gage is currently sitting at 17 and 19% on Yahoo and ESPN respectively, that's got to change. He's got that target share already carved out. Yeah, he has to deal with Kyle Pitts, but Kyle Pitts hasn't been much to write home about either, in all honesty. He's been doing pretty solid for what he's got going on.
Stinks.
Yeah, they do.
If you don't have Patterson, then or Pitts, realistic. But I see you on Gage because he's a guy I've streamed in the past this year, and he gave me a big fat 0 that 1 week, and then I dropped him, and then he goes off. So, it's feast or famine, but that's what you're looking for right now. You're trying to find that guy that's going to get you those points. So that's a good call. I like that. Tight ends though, like there's some guys there that are out there. I think like Darren Waller's replacement, Foster. I'm going to butcher
Foster
the last
Moreau.
name, Mr. Moreau. But he's basically nobody's rostered him. He's in 2% rostered. So there's some smart people out there, or just somebody that liked his name and picked him up. But Waller's out. It's a good pickup. I think he's a guy in that offense. I think Mr. Carr and Mr. Moreau could have a nice little combination. He's had 12 receptions for 134 yards and 3 touchdowns. So he's got 25% of his catches are touchdowns. So if he does that this week, you're looking okay. So to that point, I like that play there. But I know there's tons, because I think there's a couple of injuries last week to some tight ends outside of Waller, right? Knox got hurt, or not Knox. Is it Arnold got hurt?
Yeah, my boy Dan Arnold got hurt.
Yeah. So who do you like,
that backfired on me. Yeah. It's funny. You mentioned Dan Arnold. James O'Shaughnessy is back in Jacksonville, and especially in a DFS type situation, I really like him this week as an opportunity to go out there and potentially put up a touchdown and get some shakedown yardage once they're passing like mad to try and keep up with the Rams. So honestly, that's one of my favorite pickups this week. If you're looking to pick up the receptions, if you're in a PPR league, James O'Shaughnessy with Jacksonville, really like his opportunity there this week. Cole Kummett still out there and still a guy that I'm honestly he didn't do too bad against
I'm
Detroit.
Just being a Bears hater right now.
I know.
But I just quick little stat on O'Shaughnessy there. He started week 1 for Jacksonville before Arnold got there, and he had what do you have? He had 8 targets, 6 catches, 48 yards, no touchdown. But and then what's his face got hurt, and he went for 3 for 29. So they like him when he's out there. So that's actually a really solid pickup, man. He's not rostered by anybody, so
no,
you could go out and grab him, right?
He's just about everywhere you can imagine, so you don't have to worry too much about having to spend an arm and a leg to pick up O'Shaughnessy. But again, it's as solid of a week to do it, where it's going to probably be a 45-50 pass attempt day from that Jacksonville offense and Trevor Lawrence. So it's definitely going to have his work cut out for him in terms of what he'll be able to do there. So well, I see you. I see what you're doing there, Bob. The island of and just changing out the doctor. I see what you're doing there.
Smart.
But yeah, no. I outside of that though, it's the usual suspects, as we all know. Logan Thomas is getting back into the swing of things. Finally getting off the IR. David Njoku,
Jack Doyle, Everett.
Yep. Yeah, they're all there, and it feel like, again, it's one of those things where it's just that cycle of the same players over and over and over. I'm not going to beat the drum on Freiermuth anymore. I feel like that's. I mean, he's going to keep scoring touchdowns. There's only so many times you can say it until people actually catch on and say, "Oh, maybe I should start this guy."
You never said that this year. The guys I won up did, but whatever.
Well, we got outside of that. I mean, are there any defense plays that you like in terms?
It's funny you say that. I threw a couple down just for some starts, because I think in turn you're looking for some points at this point, right? You got a shocker would be maybe going with the Bills against New England. At home, have New England coming into town. You may see snow this weekend. You never know in Buffalo. Lake effect snow could be a fucking blizzard, and I just that could be they'd have to be careful with the ball, which means they're not going to take as many chances. And with that defense, it's just a combination for not many points. And if you could see some sacks, you may not see a lot. I think that's the play. There's some other ones out there, but I'm going to give you an opportunity. But you could flip it and say the Patriots against Buffalo. I don't know if that's. I just don't know if that's good. If but just because the Patriots defense is good, and I just don't know if they can write up a good enough game plan to stop the Bills. But I just was just trying to give you the other side of the coin there. But yeah, the Bills would be my pick on the starts here. But what about you?
Yeah, no, I think for what is out there right now, a lot of people refuse to roster more than one defense, and so this has left this defense on a lot of waiver wires just because of their opponent last week, and that's the Indianapolis Colts going up against the Houston Texans.
I like that.
It's a smash spot. The Eagles going up against the Jets is another one. So I'd say those are the two big ones that they're floating around 50% right now. So
what about the Giants against Miami? What they did to the Giants, what the Giants did to the Eagles last week, I mean, it's who's to say they couldn't go out and do that to Tua and the boys,
That's true. That's true. Potentially, yeah. I although I will say this, and we don't know if Daniel Jones is going to play. Even the Miami defense on the flip side of that coin, and how whatever that is going to look like, depending on what the Giants are going to roll out there, is the potential as well. So yeah, the other one, I hate saying it as a Bears fan, but the Arizona Cardinals. I don't know what the Bears offense is going to look like this week.
Fireman Aggie.
Yeah, it's gonna be ugly. It's gonna be ugly. That's all we know, to say the least. So with that, we'll flip the switch here. We'll look at some starts and sits for week number 13. I almost lost track of what the week was. Wow.
Nice job, Mr. Johnson.
I'm just like all over the place, but we also like to call it glitches and cheat codes. See drumming over there. All right, we go down the list. We have our cheat codes, which we consider our starts, and our glitches, which we say sit your guys. They're going to cause you some issues in week number 13. So we'll start it right off the top with the quarterbacks. Who we got as the glitch and the cheat?
I'm going to go with my glitch right now is Kirk Cousins, or my cheat. I'm sorry. He's the guy we got to go with. I think, playing against Detroit, no Dalvin Cook. As much as I love Madison, I still think, they're going to have to rely on Cousins just that, that it's going to be harmonious between him and Madison if that offense is really going to flow. But Cousins has to perform. The Lions passing defense has been decent. But they still give up plenty of points to top wideouts. I just think that means a big day for Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, and that just in turn means a big day for Mr. Cousins. Hopefully COVID's up there in Minnesota, and the guys are able to stay healthy, and they're not going to be, there's not a big outbreak up there. But that's my play at the quarterback spot. I'm going to sit though. I'm going to go back to sitting, Tyrod Taylor or Mac Jones this week. I'm actually going to say Mac Jones against Buffalo, just sticking with the defense that I wanted to go with. I think that's everything is brutal about this environment for him. And he's a rookie going against a really good defense on the road and possibly some winter weather. I just think he's a guy I'd probably want to stay with, as everyone is loving Mac Jones. I just think the hype at this one, you got to keep him on your bench,
All right.
Yeah,
I'm going to go with my cheat code for the week is going to be Jimmy Garoppolo with the Niners going up against the Seahawks. Again, the Seahawks defense that has been prone to giving up some pretty sizable yardage. Yeah, Deebo Samuel is not going to play in this one more than likely. But that being said, you still have to deal with Brandon Ayuk. You still have to deal with George Kittle. You still have to deal with that power running game that the Niners like to shove down everyone's throats with. Again, just the way that they've been so productive. And on top of that, defense playing at the level that they've been playing at, it should shake up to be a pretty decent game for Jimmy G this week against Seattle. As for the glitch this week, you mentioned him. I'm going to pick him. Tyrod Taylor with the Texans going up against Indy. Some very athletic linebackers with the Indianapolis Colts as well that should be able to keep him in check from wandering out of the pocket and putting his mobility to use. And again, it's not looked good for the Texans, and there's been a lot of questions over whether or not he's the guy for the rest of the year. And this might be the one to have the last straw break the camel's back there down in Houston with the quarterback situation. See if they can put the rookie back in to see what they got out of him down there. So let's roll it over to the running backs. Man, there's a couple names on this list I really, really like.
Who do you like?
I'm going to go with Miles Sanders. I have bashed him left and right for weeks upon weeks. I said you should drop him. I said he's not a good play. But then he comes out last week and has one of his best games of the season, despite giving up a fumble there. But the Jets are as bottom of the barrel as it gets in terms of run defenses. If there's going to be a game in which the Eagles run wild, it is this game. And it should be led by Miles Sanders, with the rest of the running back room outside of Boston Scott looking pretty banged up right now. It looks like Jordan Howard isn't going to play with a knee injury, but again, it should be run, and don't look back for the Eagles there. In terms of the guys I don't want to keep on my starting setup here, again, he's played pretty well this year for a rookie, but Raimonde Stevenson, don't want anything to do with him in Buffalo on Monday night. It's not something that is not necessarily looking up for any positives there. But again, for all we know, all it takes is, getting a couple goal line carries if they can get themselves into the right spot there. But again, it's going to be a very tough environment. And again, when you put Buffalo on a national stage in prime time, it's a very difficult place to play, and it should reflect that way.
Bills Mafia will be out in full force. Fuck, that's a tough place to play, come December. And so it's prime time Monday night. It'd be nice to have a huge snowstorm and just be a classic game, and it would be just fun to watch, but wishful thinking, But I got a guy coming off an injury, coming off a bye. I like Clyde Edwards-Hilaire. He is back. He played before the bye, but I just see them deploying him early and often, both in the receiving game as well as on the ground. I just that spells bad things for Darrell Williams and the boys, but I just think he's the dude they're going to really try to, against Denver, they're going to try to establish the run, and that's going to be with CLE or CEH. I'm sorry, CLE, geez, but CEH. And on the other side of that, I'd stay away from any Seahawks, Jets, or Titans running backs. I don't think any of those, or Texans. I'm sorry, Texans, Jets, or Seahawks. Stay away from all. I'm going to keep it there. Seahawks against the Niners, Jets against Philly, and Texans against Indy for obvious reasons. So I'm going to cheat and just kind of say those three running back rooms, stay away from. Because you took mine actually, but that's so.
Stealing from me.
We slide over to the receivers though, and I know there's some great plays, but is there anybody that you really, really like going forward in week 13?
The one that I really like this week, I mentioned his quarterback. I'm going to mention him right now, and that's Brandon Nyuk. Again, another guy that I wanted to bash left and right.
He's back.
He is back. And again, looking at what he's been able to do with Debo not on the field, he's averaging 4 points per game more than what he did with Debo on the field. Just takes over games from both the reception and a target standpoint. So really like his opportunity here against Seattle. So definitely the play there for how things should shape up. And then on the glitch side, I don't want to go back to the well on New England players, so I'm going to go somewhere else. I really don't like Jamar Chase this week. Again,
he's on my list too.
That Chargers defense continues to knock off those longer pass plays. They're
going to run the ball with Mixon anyway, I think.
Yeah, 100% will. And really, it's probably going to shape up to be more of a game for Tyler Boyd in this scenario, or even CJ Uzoma for getting down the center of the field in these shorter plays. But it doesn't feel like a Jamar Chase game to me going up against the LA Chargers. How about you?
I'm with. No, that's a great call. I don't like any really Cincy receiver this week. So you hit the nail on the head there. But I'm gonna keep it simple. I've liked Elijah Moore. I've named some rookies this week. I think going against the zone defense in New England, I think that this just spells great things for him, getting inside those little spots in the zone where he thrives, getting the ball in his hands and making things happen. I like Elijah Moore going against the Eagles. I just expect more from him this week. I think there's a couple, in the chat, I saw Van Jefferson. He's another dude. I think him and OBJ may even have good weeks against Detroit. I mean, it's fucking Detroit. You and I can probably catch 7 balls out there. And on the flip side of that, I'm gonna say Traquan Smith and Marquez Callaway from the Saints. I don't like any of them. It's wait and see with Taysom Hill as the new quarterback. I just think it's kind of time to pump the brakes there. So if you're relying on them now, I would try to make some plays coming waiver wire on some of the dudes we talked about earlier in the previous segment. But those are some dudes I'd probably, the same thing on the Bills side with Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley. They're playing against New England, brutal matchup. If it's cold, bad weather, it could be a Singletary versus a Harris game. And I just like the chances of the Bills there. But to that point, I'd stay away from them as well.
All right.
Yeah. Keep it simple, man.
Well, and really the thing about the Saints, and specifically about Taysom Hill, he likes to lock on to one receiver. And the fact that we're not entirely sure who that's going to be, if it's going to be Traquan, if it's going to be Callaway. I mean, I lean like it might be Smith, but it's such a toss-up. Because he locked on to Michael Thomas when he was starting last year and Thomas was healthy. And again, it was a pretty relatively healthy target share. So once we get some more clarity there, it might even be matchup proof for one of those guys. But until we have a solid idea of who that would be, time to hold off on that for a week. Tight end, who we got?
Me? No. So I already talked about picking this guy up on the waiver wire. I like Foster Moreau as a start this week. I just think in that offense, I see kind of not necessarily a shootout, but I did say I see a shootout before. So I'm going to stick to my guns there. See how I did that? And I'm going to stick with Foster Moreau going against Cincy. He looked good. First time out, when he filled in. So let's see how he goes here. I like the play. There's some other guys, the Logan Thomases of the world and the Noah Fants or some starts. At this point, I'm trying to go with an obscure pick here to give you somebody that, you're dealing with an injury and somebody else snakes some of the dudes you were looking to grab. Him or Tyler Conklin. Those are the couple dudes that I'm thinking you could grab right there. And so I don't know if you want me to give you a weaker start, but, Hunter Henry, I'm going to throw it out there. I think he's a guy to stay away from. And I don't like Cole Kummett this week because the Arizona Cardinals have actually given up the least amount of fantasy points to tight ends this year.
That is true. They've been pretty stingy. So not necessarily setting up to be a good matchup for the Bears in that regard with what Kummett can bring to the field for that offense. I'm going to go a little bit. I mentioned him in regard to the wide receiver situation and not being a great matchup there. But CJ Uzoma, really like him this week, like I mentioned, against the Chargers. So really think he has an opportunity to bust out of his slump there. He only has a combined 18 yards his last 2 games. But again, the opportunity is there. Again, a boomer bust tight end, but one of the better matchups for him this year to get things going. So do like that opportunity for him. In terms of the sit category, man, I am not big on Dalton Schultz. I think with CeeDee Lamb back, it's going to make things a little bit harder for Schultz to get involved. The Saints tend to do pretty decently against
they clamp
tight
down
ends.
on tight ends.
Yeah, they are one of the better defensive units in that regard. So do think that this could be one of the more difficult matchups, even though Dalton's kind of come alive here over the last couple of weeks, obviously with that being with Lamb out, also dealing with Cooper out. And it looks like Cooper might miss another game, and just a really rough COVID situation, unvaccinated. So that does, come down to it here. Speaking of tight end, Rashad in the chat, Goddard versus Kummett.
Goddard Fant. Personally. I would just play Fant. I'd play Fant. I would play.
You
Fant.
Dropped Goddard?
I think Fant had all three of those guys. Rashad, I think you got Fant. He hasn't scored yet in his career against KC, but he has gotten 7 targets his last 2 games against them. 6 catches, I think, for 60 yards the last time they played. If he can get that and a touchdown, that's a great day. And I get Dallas is Dallas Goddard. I mean, it is what it is. He's the
even against the Jets.
Are they going to use the tight end against the Jets? Or are they going to get up big and they're going to play their backups and he's going to play half a game, and protect their money and their investment? I don't know. I like Fant this week too. He was a guy I was going to talk. I actually thought you were going to pick him for a tight end start. So I left that one out there. But yeah, I think Rashad, you'd be great to go with Fant. That's my opinion. But
yeah, and again, he's had some, like you mentioned, some solid opportunities and some solid game logs against the Chiefs over the course of his short career here.
He needs to break that cherry against the get that touchdown. He's got to get the end zone here and make that happen. I can't believe I just said that. That came out wrong, but he needs to just do that for the first time.
Yeah, no, Kummett completely out of the picture in terms of comparing the 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see the mindset though of the Eagles not necessarily needing to pass and Goddard leaving the game as well, which also did not help things a week ago. So okay, you're talking me into it.
Oh,
you
agree? I like it. Right. Look at that.
Okay, you're going there.
We're
all
on
right.
The same page. All right.
So yeah, that's again, it's a tough roll of things. Obviously, the tight end position overall continues to be a difficult one to maneuver as things go along. You have Darren Waller not living up to expectations, as we all know. George Kittle being injured there for a while. TJ Hawkinson not doing all too hot. Really, it's been Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce leading the way, and then just kind of playing matchups.
Pat Freiermuth.
And Pat Freiermuth. You can't forget Pat. Can't forget Pat Freiermuth. Speaking of Dawson Knox, Noah Fant, or Pat Freiermuth, if he clears protocol. That's right.
I'm going to go
Fant
protocol. I like Knox against the New England just because especially if it's bad weather, I think he's the guy. But who do you like? I'm going to let you pontificate here.
Give me Freiermuth if he's healthy and he plays. Baltimore. We've talked. I feel like we've talked about them enough. They are not too great against tight ends. They haven't been for the majority of the year. And again, get out of concussion protocol. If not, I agree with Fant. Definitely think that the opportunity is there, like we had just mentioned. Knox is another solid opportunity, but that the New England defense, I feel, should do a good enough job containing him. Even though he's been pretty solid the last couple games, the Patriots have been that much better against tight ends. So I'd go Pat, Fant, Knox in that order.
Okay.
So
I'm with you there.
All right.
I like Mr. Freiermuth. What a great draft pick by the fucking Steelers, man. That's a good one. Yeah.
Dude, he just had that swagger about him when he came out of Penn State. And it's like, all right, he's got.
We got fucking pretty boy Floyd, Cole Clement, motherfucker, But anyhow, one up fucking fantasy. What a day, what a dollar, Fucking week 13. Here we are. Rain, sleet, or snow. Fucking take the pounding because that's what's gonna happen to some of us because of fucking injuries, But what do you say, Mr. Johnson?
It's going to be a doozy, especially if the waiver wire doesn't work out for some leagues. It could be a very ugly week, and we could end up playing some not so great plays, specifically at running back, like we talked about. But hey, at least there's some decent options that should be out there, barring the depth of your rosters and just how barren your waiver wire just may be. But again, we're looking at here, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, if you only got 4 teams in your playoff that are left here. So the time is ticking towards the finale of the regular season in fantasy leagues. And man, it's been a marathon, to say the least, this year.
Jesus.
But once you get to the big dance, you start thinking up, just don't overplay yourself, and really just don't overthink it right now. For what you have on the table, just play your studs. Don't overthink it. If you got the solid players, just play them.
Yeah.
Play them. It's all.
If you hit on one of those guys you need to just plug in, then hey, good for you. You're probably going to win the week, But if not, you hopefully live to fight another week next week, week 14. And we'll be talking about more fucking injured running backs.
Who's your pick to get injured this week?
I'm not saying it. I don't want to get into that. I don't want to.
Let me check my opponent's lineup.
Don't you fucking dare, man. Don't put that out in the atmosphere, Mr. Johnson. We need all the good juju over here we can get, man. You know what I'm saying? So let's keep it on the positivity side here.
Power of positivity all day. All
do it.
day. So we'll see what happens next week. I'm sure there'll be one injury to talk about. There always is. It always is. That's how it always goes. We didn't even get into Debo all too much as well. He's out for a couple weeks. He's been a stud this year as well. So
RB1.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening. But it should be another doozy of a week. So good luck to each and every one of you as you enter week 13. And hopefully, if you haven't clinched that playoff spot, you have an opportunity to do it this weekend, no matter what league or where you are playing. But that's going to do it for us here on this week on One Up Fantasy. We'll be back same time, same place next week, 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central, and do be sure to tune in to Keeping It 100 tomorrow night, Wednesday, or tonight if you're listening to the podcast version of this at 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central with Phil and Shane. So they talk some Bears and Cardinals at Soldier Field. So
it's a fire Matt Nagy.
The chants will be rolling. I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. They always are. The Soldier Field crowd does not disappoint whatsoever. But for Chris Jackle, I'm Stephen Johnson. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. We've got the chants going in the chats as well.
Mm-hmm.
But until next week, good luck. We'll talk to you next Tuesday night. Take care, everybody.
Take care, everybody.